and welcome. My name is Tracy. In today's video I'm going to show you how to make a wedding card such as this. Even if you don't have any actual wedding supplies, we'll be using our Mementos and our Versafine Clair and our Brilliance inks. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. Here are the supplies you're going to need. So I've got a top folding card base, just a white top folding card base, and then I have a piece of vellum here, and it's kind of an iridescent vellum. I have just a plain white piece of cardstock. This is heavy cardstock, and then a second plain white piece of cardstock. And then I've got some cardstock scraps here. I've got this die from my stash, and it's just a little floral spray, and I'm going to cut 2 or 3 of them. I've got an embossing folder, and it's just a floral embossing folder, anyone would do. I've got my inks here in Angel Pink and New Sprout. And then I've got my Brilliance here in Galaxy Gold. I've got a regular brush and a small brush. I've got a die that says Love, so just dig through your stash. And then I've got Thinking of You, maybe. I'm not sure what I'm going to use yet. And then On Your Wedding Day for the inside of the card. So we'll go ahead and get started on this card. And what I want to do here is I'm going to be cutting out these dies, and then I'll be right back. So I've got everything cut out, and I've cut out the love word multiple times, 6 times to be exact. And this is the vellum piece, which is the shadow layer to the love. And I don't know if you can see it on camera, it's iridescent. And these are the floral sprays, which I absolutely love these, and they're great for so many different occasions. But for this occasion, we're trying to make a wedding card. So we want to come in with some really soft colors. And I'm using Angel Pink, but you can use any color that you like. And I'm just using this brush to kind of just lightly brush the color on. I don't want a heavy color. Ideally, you know, even you could do white on white if you wanted to, but I do want to add some color to this because after all, my YouTube handle is Not Afraid of Color. So you can barely see it, but it's there, and you'll definitely be able to see it up against a white background. And I have my dies laying on a sticky mat so that they don't move around while I'm trying to color them, and it makes life a lot easier, especially with a large die. So I do have the coloring sped up by quite a bit, and I'm just doing kind of an ombre, so going from the bottom up on the love, leaving the top part white. So I'll move that aside because now I want to come in with my New Sprout. Let's see if we can get this to focus here. There we go, New Sprout. And I'm going to use that small brush that you saw. And I'm just going to come in and I'm going to do the stems. And I'm going to do it on both. And I have one that I've already done off to the side because I actually do a prototype before I make my card on video to make sure that it's going to look good. So just coloring in the stems here. And again, you could go with any shade of green that you wanted to. It just depends on how much color you want to put on the card. Typically, wedding cards are very, very soft. But this wouldn't have to be a wedding card. It could be any kind of card. But for today's purpose, I've got the love word and I've got florals, so I'm going for wedding. And the coloring here does not have to be perfect. You can take your time and, you know, really try and get it precise. Like I have an even smaller brush, but it just doesn't hold enough ink for my taste. You can see that I have to multiple times dig back into that ink. But here's this spray finished, and then we'll finish the second one. And I'll go ahead and complete that off camera and be right back. Okay, we've got those all done, and let me just grab the piece of white cardstock, which is 4 by 5 1/4, and I've gone ahead and embossed that off camera, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting my card together here. So I'm just doing little sections of these florals because they can kind of bend around. Not too much. I mean, you don't want to fold it in half or anything, but you can lightly bend it because it's got very, very thin little stems here. And let me just zoom in a little closer for you so you can see that I'm just doing a few at a time and just kind of bending them to my will. So I want the floral spray to come up and around the left-hand corner. Again, use any dies you have, even if you just have individual flowers and you just cut a bunch of them. The main thing about this particular design is to make sure that your colors are light. Unless you're going to a rainbow wedding, then by all means make your colors rainbow. So I'll trim off the excess here, but I'm not throwing that away. I'm going to use it to help build out my little kind of archway here. So I'll get those all good and stuck down, and I'm just using some regular PVA glue. So it does have a little wiggle room, but you do need quite a bit of glue when you're gluing down, especially small things, to a bumpy surface like an embossed panel. So we'll make sure that one's good and stuck down. And then I'm going to go ahead and start trimming my second spray to just kind of build that out a bit. So we're kind of going by the rule of thirds here, in the sense that we're taking up the top third and bottom corners, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. So anytime in design, you kind of want to, for the purposes of it looking good, aesthetic purposes, if you want to use a big word, you want to kind of follow some art rules. Now, when we're junk journaling, all bets are off, but still, you kind of want to just follow those. So we've got basically a third of the card taken up with our florals. And I'm just kind of trimming around so there's no sharp pointy edges. And I'm going to lay this spray right, let me see, where do I want it? Yeah, right about there works. You could do just a bunch of green leaves, you know, just 2 or 3 light shades of green. Imagine Crafts carries all of the dewdrops, and there are tons of shades of green. I should know, I have a few. I might have 1 or 2. All right, we've got those laid out, and I'm not going to trim it just yet. We're going to work on our sentiment now. Oops, you know what? I'm not going to let these little extra pieces laying here go to waste. I'm going to glue them on and just kind of get all the way almost to the edge of that card. Yep, there's a little empty hole right there we can use. And then off camera at the end of the video, you'll see that I added jewels to the centers of each of these flowers. You don't have to do that. It looks fine without them. I just was in the mood. So I'm taking 2 of my loves, 2 of my 6, and I'm going to glue those together. And they are going to go on the back of my vellum. And the reason for that is it's just going to make everything easier to glue down, and it's going to give it a little extra height. Because we've got all that height in our florals, we don't want a flat sentiment. So I just take my tweezers and just kind of manipulate and maneuver, and this is why I like to use my PVA glue for this, so that I have a little bit of wiggle room to get everything together, because this is a very, very thin die cut. As you can see, I fumble with it. And I just kind of use my tweezers and hope everything goes together nicely. And I'm not too worried about glue ooze on the bottom piece, because you'll never see it. So I'm glued together the top pieces off camera. And so I've got the 3 blank pieces, and then I've got my lightly ombre colored piece. And I'm going to carefully add glue, holding it with my tweezers. You can hold it with your hands if you can. I can't. My hands just don't like little pinchy motions like that. They say, nope, we're not going there. And then I tap off the excess glue and I drop it, of course, and go ahead and glue that down to its shadow layer. And just make sure everything's nice and even all the way around. And then I'll flip it over and I'll glue the back on. Just making sure everything's good and stuck down. And then I'm just going to add glue directly to my vellum. I'm not going to go too crazy with it, because it doesn't need to cover the entire thing, but I'm going to come pretty close. I don't want a lot of glue oozing out. And then I'll put these these two layers that I glued together earlier back there and match them up with the front. And that's going to make this sentiment nice and sturdy, and it's going to give it a good height. Because it's got to really stand out on this card. So now we have a nice sturdy sentiment. And all I need to do is glue it down to the card. So let's pick some things up here. And I'm going to go ahead and do the inside of the card now. And so I picked sentiments from a couple of different sentiment sets. Just look through your stuff. You can piece together stuff as long as the fonts aren't too crazy different, or even if they are different. In this case, they are. We've got uppercase, regular handwriting, and then on our second stamp that we're putting, we have cursive, real fancy one. So I'm going to use my T-ruler just to make sure that this is on here straight. Keeps wanting to stick to my finger. Okay, and I'm happy with that. I'm just going to kind of condition that stamp because I've never used it before. And I think I will use, and I didn't list it in the beginning, but I'm going to use Versafine Clair and Baby Pink. So I'm still keeping things light here on the inside of the card. So I'll stamp down on your wedding day, and then I'll grab the second stamp. And I think I'm going to do Thinking of You on your wedding day, so in case you couldn't be at the wedding. Or With Love. Okay, nope, I chose With Love. I forgot. I'm just going to kind of make sure it's on there halfway straight. And then I'm going to use the New Sprout for that. And I'm going to do several stampings because I don't want to press down hard, but I do want layers of ink so that you can see it. And so that piece is done, and it is 4 by 5 1/4, by the way. And now I'm going to take this Brilliance, and I'm going to just do a little bit of ink blending around the edges of this, just to add a little gilded touch. So I'm just taking my brush and making sure that I've cleaned off any dark color that I might have used on it, and I'm just using alcohol wipes to do that. And then I'll just keep rubbing it on a piece of paper until I don't see any ink coming out, and then I'm just lightly going around, trying not to drop my ink pad, the inside edge of this insert. You could also do, you could use StazOn and stamp on vellum and put the inside as a vellum half fold so that you've got two layers on your card. So let's put the card together. I'm going to go ahead and put the inside together first. So I'm just using liquid glue, and you most always will see me just using liquid glue. We'll just get that glued down, make sure it's nice and straight. And then I have another little floral spray here, because remember I said I did one off camera. And I'm just going to glue this little floral spray to the inside there. And the same, just little dots of glue around the flowers. I'm not worried about the stems. I do want to make sure that the card closes, so I'm keeping it to the confines of the inner layer there. Make sure that's good and stuck down, and then I'll stick down my embossed panel with all my flowers. And lots of glue on that. And once I've got that stuck down, then I'll trim off any excess that's hanging over. So I don't lose much of my work at all here. Just whatever's hanging over. And then I can glue my love straight down because I already have the dimension on it. And notice now I can put the glue just right there on the back of my paper layers that I glued to the back of my vellum. And that's going to help it grab much quicker as well, because sometimes you can't, vellum's not going to grab. I'm going to use my T-ruler again to kind of make sure that it's on here straight. I'm positioning it right about in the middle. And I'm just going to lay something heavy on it for it to dry. So here's the card finished, and now you can see I've added the little gems, and these are just fingernail gems, and the kind you get for decorating fingernails. Clear. And here's the inside. So pretty easy card. It took a little bit of time to color in, but that's okay. So we use the New Sprout, we use the Angel Pink, we use the Baby Pink in Versafine Clair, and we use the Galaxy Gold Brilliance. I hope you liked this video. If you do, please leave us a thumbs up. Everything will be listed in the description box below. Thanks so much for stopping by the channel. We hope that you have an amazing day. Happy stamping. Bye-bye.